A massive fire erupted in a warehouse at the Nico Lopez Refinery complex in Cuba's capital, Havana. Cuba's Ministry of Energy and Mines said in an ex-post that the fire was brought under control and no injuries were reported. Videos circulating on social media showed huge smoke billowing out of the refinery. The blaze comes at a time when Cuba is facing an acute energy crisis due to the United States oil blockade. Donald Trump has threatened to slap tariffs on any nation providing Cuba with fuel, prompting Mexico to cut off shipments to the island.
Cuban leader Miguel Díaz-Canel said today that Cuba would be willing to engage in dialogue with the United States only without pressure, without preconditions, on equal footing and with respect for sovereignty. But his government is denying what President Trump said, that they're already holding talks. How would you respond to that?
I think the fact that the Cuban government is on its last leg and its country is about to collapse, they should be wise in their statements directed towards the President of the United States. But as I just reiterated, the President is always willing to engage in diplomacy, and I believe that's something that is taking place, in fact, with the Cuban government.
Cuban aviation authorities have told airlines that there isn't enough available gas for airplanes to refuel in Cuba, part of the strict energy rationing going into place as the Trump administration has effectively cut the island off from its fuel resources.
But if I get there, I'll work. And if I work and another PC shows up, I'm leaving. And if not, I'll have to get a machine. And if I don't have money, I'll stay home. It's over. There's nothing else. I won't give up. I won't give up.
2 Mexican Navy ships laden with humanitarian aid arrived in Cuba last week amid the energy crisis sparked by a U.S. blockade. The Mexican government has said that one ship is carrying some 536 tons of food, including milk, rice, beans, sardines, meat products, cookies, canned tuna, and vegetable oil, as well as personal hygiene items.
We have stated that Mexico is doing everything on its part to be able to generate a dialogue that allows, within the framework of the sovereignty of Cuba, because this is extremely important, because it is furthermore our fundamental principle, the self-determination of all peoples, to generate the necessary conditions for a truly peaceful dialogue, and also that Cuba, without any other nation imposing sanctions, can receive oil and its essential derivatives for its daily functioning and its everyday operation.
According to an Associated Press report, people in Havana woke up last Friday with fewer transportation options for going to work. The public transportation system on the island is now deeply affected by a fuel shortage that has forced buses to stay in the garage. Those who could afford it crowded into taxis, but many faced long walks, reminiscent of the so-called special period when the country's economy collapsed after the fall of the Soviet Union.
More sacrifice? Seriously. More sacrifice of what? There's nothing left to sacrifice. What's next? For example, I'm part of the military reserve until I'm 61. Because at 60, they still call you. What will you do? Are you going to use us as cannon fodder to stand us in front of an American soldier?
Last night, we managed to stay somewhere. 1 person, now more. 2 people now stranded. 1 from Cotoro and I, who live in UTM due to the lack of regular bus service. I mean, there had been difficulties for quite some time, but there was always some bus available, you know, some possibility. Now, for the moment, there are none.
I think Russia closed flight because oil is finished, and now blockade is from USA. Canada is also closed the door and so on. But I don't know, maybe many years ago we come back to Cuba again.
Cuba's beaches are still bathed in Caribbean sunshine. But behind the postcard views of Veradero, a deepening crisis is forcing tourists onto emergency flights home. Russian holidaymakers who arrived seeking warmth and escape are now cutting their vacations short. Two major Russian airlines have halted flights to the island, citing severe aviation fuel shortages. Moscow's Civil Aviation Authority confirmed that two major airlines are now repatriating citizens. Aeroflot announced it would dispatch 4 empty aircraft to Cuba to fly passengers home before suspending flights on February 24th. The move follows similar action from Air Canada, which earlier suspended service due to fuel shortages. The airline is sending empty southbound flights to retrieve roughly 3,000 stranded travelers before halting routes by mid-February.
But we had enough time to relax here and we enjoyed our stay. So now we are feeling, well, a bit sorry, but it's okay.
I think it's very sad and the Cuban people don't deserve this. But they need the tourism, it's what the people rely on. And I think everything that Donald Trump's doing is no good.
And right now there's no flights coming in, so unfortunately we won't be back soon, but we will come back when everything's okay, and I hope that Cuba gets help. I hope Canada helps Cuba. That would be nice.
The disruption comes as a tightening U.S. energy embargo squeezes Cuba's already fragile economy. At the center of the escalating pressure is U.S. President Donald Trump, who recently signed an executive order imposing tariffs on countries that sell or provide oil to Cuba. The fallout has been swift. Cuban aviation authorities have warned airlines there is not enough available fuel for aircraft to refuel on the island. Strict rationing measures are now in force, affecting transportation, hospitals, schools, tourism, and even food production.
To visit, yes, they are battery operated because there is nothing else around here. It's how we manage things here. And so little by little we keep pushing forward. There's just no other option.
But if I get there, I'll work. And if I work and another problem comes, I'm gone. And if not, I'll have to get to work. And if I have no money, I'll stay home. That's it. There's nothing else. I won't give up. I won't give up.
Cuban President Miguel Diaz-Canel has branded the measures an energy blockade. He says the restrictions are cutting Cuba off from critical fuel resources and deepening hardship across the country.
She's a friend, Maria. One particular plan we saw in the Council of Ministers was the government directive to tackle a severe fuel shortage. That theory of economic strangulation is present, that complex economic strangulation objective. We have always had to function amidst adversities, impositions, and pressures that are not imposed on anyone else in the world, and certainly not in such a very, very prolonged manner. Cuba is willing to engage in a dialogue with the United States, a dialogue on any of the topics that one wishes to discuss or debate. Under what conditions? Without pressure. Under pressure. It is not possible to engage in dialogue without preconditions, in a position of equality, in a position of profound respect for our sovereignty, for our independence, and for our self-determination.
How are we going to keep the children's classes without fuel? How will our vital system function without fuel? How will we distribute our food? How will we plant? How will we till? How will we prepare the land? How we go about collecting all the products? How we go about transporting ourselves around? consequently will take measures that, although they won't be permanent, they will, however, have to do with, at each and every moment, the availability of fuel that we have. These will be measures that are going to demand effort. They are going to demand, I know that people are going to say, but sacrifice again? Well, if we don't sacrifice ourselves and if we don't resist, what are we going to do? Are we just going to surrender? And we have always shared that the option of surrender is not an option for Cuba.
Tourism is Cuba's lifeline, yet visitor numbers have plunged nearly 70% since 2018, leaving the economy exposed and vulnerable. Russian and Canadian tourists represent a crucial share of that revenue. Canada is the island's second largest source of direct investment, particularly in mining and tourism sectors still struggling to recover from the pandemic slump. Fuel rationing may allow shorter regional flights to continue, but long-haul routes to Russia and Canada, pillars of Cuba's tourism engine, face mounting obstacles. How long the suspensions will last remains unclear. Authorities have offered no public timeline for restoring stable fuel supplies. As international carriers retreat, another nation is stepping forward. Meanwhile, 2 Mexican Navy ships have docked in Cuba, laden with humanitarian aid. The deliveries come amid intensifying energy rationing and rising diplomatic strain. Mexican government says one vessel carried more than 536 tons of food, including rice, beans, milk, sardines, meat products, and vegetable oil, alongside hygiene supplies. A second ship delivered over 277 tons of powdered milk. Mexican President Claudia Sheinbaum pledged further assistance, announcing plans to send an additional 1,500 tons of beans and powdered milk once the ships return. Mexico has also proposed mediation in talks between Cuba and the United States, signaling a potential diplomatic opening.
We have stated that Mexico is doing everything on its part to be able to generate a dialogue that allows within the framework of the sovereignty of Cuba. Because this is extremely important, because it is furthermore our fundamental principle, the self-determination of all people, to generate the necessary conditions for a truly peaceful dialogue. And also that Cuba, without any other nation imposing sanctions, can receive oil and its essential derivatives for its daily functioning and its everyday operations.
We are sending different kinds of aid, different kinds of support. The ships are arriving today.
As soon as they return, we're going to send more support of various kinds, and we are insisting that Mexico can act as the state, the nation that opens its doors for this dialogue to unfold. Evidently, it depends on the parties reaching an agreement.
For now, however, the island's immediate challenge is fuel. Without reliable energy supplies, airports falter, supply chains strain, and the tourism sector, once a symbol of resilience, faces renewed collapse. Sunseekers may still stroll along the sands of Veradero, but behind the scenes, an energy crisis is reshaping Cuba's skies, its economy, and its global ties.